What I am doing is going to discuss with you some of the problems I believe you are facing with reference to Western political thought. And my concern is that if I just say I'll teach that uh, paper, then it'll end up being a monologue again. I'll just sit and whoever is there in the syllabus to be taught, we teach. That's the end of it. So if you have any problems, you should discuss them with me now. The reason why I'm saying that is some strange reason. Uh, in your syllabus, I think you have political theory in your first semester or so. And from the third semester onwards, you have Western political thought. It's been some time since I've seen the documents. Unfortunately, I think the documents have been changed. Documents have been changed, unfortunately. So, if that is the this thing, then I am also slightly at a loss to understand what is it that you are studying and what is it that they have changed. And I think they're using every semester as a dynamic process to bring about changes. I understand most of these problems are due to your teachers, whoever they may be. I do not know who's teaching you which paper. Uh, so my understanding is that people, they themselves do not know what it is to teach political thought, theory, philosophy. They can all be used interchangeably. So the thing is that normally when you have these kind of circumstances, you go to some vague sites on the World Wide Web and you'll pick up pieces of information. And not having studied these people, uh, they really don't know which of that is to be taken seriously, as in how seriously does one teach, what is the nature of the scholarship, uh, of the source that you're taking your material from. Uh, Very contrary to the general perception that people have, that there is no change in social sciences. Social sciences are seen as largely unchanging. And so what people studied 40 years ago is what people will be studying today also. While I myself was a student of Nizam College, I don't want to run my teachers down, but there were a couple of gentlemen who were having notes that they had as students. And most of them were, you touch and they become powder. That was the condition in which those papers were, and they would come and sit and read it out. In fact, we had one brazen, brave man used to bring a guide and read out with the guide. So, well, Osmania University has never been known for great scholars. But there were some people who could hold a class, teach the bare minimum. They would know the, what should I say, they wouldn't know the depth to which a subject has gone. So they'll probably teach political thought from George Sabine. And George Sabine is hopelessly outdated. Very, very hopelessly outdated. So social sciences, political science, these are all things which are dynamic. Now when I teach my MA students in Arts College, I don't teach it like a class. I teach it like a conversation, like a storytelling session. Because I realized that doing that is sustaining their interest better than my sitting and delivering a monologue. This is also a monologue, not that it is not a monologue, but I'm pulling somebody up and saying, do you know the answer to this? So if your difficulty is with Western political thought, I can understand, because it's not just thought, like I said, it can be philosophy, theory. The problem with this particular discipline is that it has grown very, very largely, and it has also grown like a computer program, where if you're using Unix, you'll know only Unix. You wouldn't know .NET technologies. And if you're using .NET technologies, you probably don't know Oracle. So you see, in computer technology and in computer teaching, there isn't linearity. It's not like, layer on layer, layer on layer. No, this is 0. Now you come to 10 here, here you come to 20. So you're going up along some kind of a value chain, and you're learning things which are interconnected, which is not untrue. It is true. But from the 19th century onwards, late 19th century, when the German Enlightenment happened, it was a pessimistic enlightenment. It happened not in the 19th century, it was the end of the 18th century, with people like Immanuel Kant and Hegel. Hegel was not a product of the German Enlightenment, as was uh, Kant. So you will see that at this particular point, certain divergences begin to appear in political science, in political thought. Now, the question is, were there no divergences till the end of the 18th century? Was everything, built on top of the other in terms of layers? And this is a new development. No, that is not true. This whole thing of many things developing and coming together under the head of political philosophy. All these actually, if you look at them, these are all things that, what should I say? These are all things that were as disrupted as they are from the German Enlightenment onwards. Only thing is, what happened when the Greeks wrote their books, they wrote in their language. And when the Greek civilization was eclipsed and the Roman civilization grew, one of the big problems that the Romans found while translating books or whatever from ancient Greek into Latin. And this problem mainly came up because of the fact that today we talk about political. Now, what is the root of the word political? The root of the word political is polis, P-O-L-I-S. And most of the later philosophy, starting with Plato, and then going down to Aristotle, and just a little beyond, you will find that this is where the political assumes a very, very important dimension. It's not what George Bernard Shaw called it, the last refuge of the scoundrel. In fact, for people like Aristotle and Plato, a civilized, rational society is one which is political. So if your political practices, political governance, if that is good, then the life of citizens, or actually there were no cities as well there. So if you look at that, you'll find that these people are basically talking about the political as the highest evolution, rational evolution of the human being. Okay, and but the Latin scholars had a problem. There was no institution called the polis. So what activity would you talk about as political? Okay, so you see the word political as such, or politics, everything to do with polis, these different words disappear for centuries. They disappear for centuries because of the fact that there were no equivalent institutions. There were no equivalent institutions uh, of the Greek institutions. You didn't have the equivalence of that in the other civilizations. So that's why I think I must have told you this. This is something that I keep saying every time. If you read a book that says state and politics in ancient India, please throw it away or burn it, better still. Because where was the state? The state is an institution that came into being as we know it only in the 16th, 17th centuries, around that period. Okay, so, and we translate this particular thing called polis into city-state. The polis is neither a city nor a state in any way. What you see there actually is the polis had an acropolis in the center, and there were villages strewn around the acropolis. And the Greeks did not have democracy, direct or otherwise. No democracy existed. All Greek thinkers are very, very contemptuous of anything which was called a democracy. Democracy for them was modern. So obviously that's not something that you aspire for, a modern. So what happens is that you see all these things, they create a concatenation of circumstances which you do not find in the Roman Empire. So the Romans, they started translating things into Latin by interpreting Greek words. Like, for example, if you see this expression, koinonia politicae, Koinonia, koinonia politicae. This is what Aristotle talked about. And what is koinonia politicae? Koinonia politicae is a city where, not a city, I'm sorry, a polis, where people saw good governance. Like I said, there were categories. It's not like there was equality. There was no equality ever in any part of ancient Greece. So now when the Romans came across this particular term, koinonia politicae, politicae is an enlightened polis or a politeia. I'll talk about that later on now. So there is no equivalent to that. Koinonia is some kind of rational culmination of a telos that Aristotle talked about. So if you look at those terms, they became very difficult for the Romans to basically translate them into Latin. So how does Canonia Politicae, or what does Canonia Politicae get translated into when we see uh, uh, the Latin translation? Okay, it became for the Latin scholars, Roman scholars. They translated Canonia Politicae into this expression, which was called, which was basically called Societas Civilis, right? Societas Civilis is again not something that we know today. Societas Civilis was that part of the Roman civilization. The Roman, they also had a primitive republic. So in that, you will see that there are these people who have attained a greater level of enlightenment than others. So something comprising of Societas Civilis basically meant a society which was well organized, and again, the operational word would be well governed. So that is Societas Civilis. When it came to English, John Locke translated that into civil society. And the meaning of civil society is not that meaning which Societas Civilis had. Okay, civil society is completely different. In the case of John Locke, civil society comprised of those people whom he called rational. And the proof of their being rational was their ability to accumulate private property. That is what Locke said. Okay, so it's a very famous thing. It's called the 40 shilling rule. The 40 shilling rule was according to our Mr. Aristotle, sorry, according to John Locke, if you did not have 40 shillings, it's like you have 40 shillings, but they are in the bank. You're not using them. That means they're not encumbered. They are there. They are there as property. Okay, only those people who had this kind of property were those who were considered to be rational, and they were rational because they showed that they could take care of themselves by amassing a certain amount of wealth. So the others who couldn't amass wealth were considered to be incapable of taking care of themselves. And hence, there was no question there was no question of entrusting the responsibility of governing society to those who cannot take care of themselves. That was a argument, so they were less rational. They couldn't. It'll all sound terrible, but when we get to doing law, you'll understand this better. So anyway, so Locke resurrected a term uh, from Latin, which again had disappeared uh, during the Christian period, and it had become, during the Christian period, it was Civitas Dei. Now, this is very unfortunately translated again into English as the city of God. That's not what it means. What it means is this is a society that reflects the wisdom of God. That is the correct translation of it, not city of God. So anyway, so what we find is that these are all things which are what should I say? These are all things which contextually were reused and without in any way having anything to do with the original terms and how they originated. Now, the same thing with politics. Like I said, you don't find the word politics during the Roman Empire. You don't find the word politics during the Christendom, Middle Ages. You don't find that word there. Nobody uses politics. And what and how did politics come into this vocabulary again? You have to credit Machiavelli with this. Machiavelli was the person who realized that people would remain subjugated to the church and they would not develop further because the church always told people that you're all sinners. Okay? By birth, you're a sinner because you're carrying the sin of Eve, which is eating the forbidden fruit in paradise and landing up, what should I say, on earth. Okay, so it's one of those kind of situations where everything was divine. Every prayer begins with, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." Okay, it begins with that. So it's always asking for forgiveness, asking for, I have committed this sin, that sin. That was when the confession was there. And people went and confessed what sinful thoughts they had, leave actions. If they had a sinful thought, they had to go and confess. So you see, the church had a stranglehold over the lives of people, and it basically did so by changing the meaning of ethics. If you look at ethics in the context of Greece and in the context of Rome, ethics derives itself out of social ethos. Now, something can be ethical according to one particular society, and it may not be considered unethical by another society. So there are lots of things that Americans do which we find are unethical. And there are lots of things that we do which other people find to be unethical. So this thing about ethics was subjugating people is what Machiavelli felt. So if you had to liberate people, make them realize their potential, that which is called humanism, the human being is capable of doing all kinds of things. So when he wanted to do that, what he did is he just pulled the word politics and political. He pulled it out of the Greek context. In the Greek context, it was due to the polis, but in the Machiavellian sense of the term, it becomes, what do we say? It basically becomes something which is the opposite of ethics. You know, ethics are, he said, this is something which you talk about as virtue, and it's all spiritual. Whereas politics are temporal, they're all about good governance and all that kind of thing. So if you're looking at these things, you can see that a lot of churning happened in history with institutions, with language, and consequently with political practices. Okay, so the word political comes back into circulation thanks to Machiavelli, but it doesn't mean what it meant for the Greeks. For the Greeks, that which is political is the highest form of ethical life, whereas for Machiavelli, this is, the political is the opposite of the ethical, which is stopping the growth of individuals in society. So if you look at all these things, you see language, societal practices, all these different kinds of things came together to bring about changes. Maybe if there is occasion, I'll talk to you about that later. But with Kant, Kant found a problem with ethics. If everything is derived from social practices, then he said, where is the question of universal good and universal bad? So he replaced the term ethics with morals. And he called morals a categorical imperative. But don't worry about that. I'm not going to get into that. So you see, there is this evolution. This evolution also has been happening in the teaching of the subject, in the learning of the subject, because we learn from our mistakes. So these huge mistakes were made in the past. And people said, okay, this is not sustainable. So let's learn from this. Now, so what I'm trying to tell you is that there is a dynamic. There is a complete dynamic to political philosophy. It's not static. It's not a building that is standing there like Arts College forever. It's not that at all. It is something that is seeing a lot of eclectic activity, and it is also seeing different kinds of practices coming and going. So if you therefore look at these things, unless you are aware of these minor details, you will not understand anything completely. So that's how I wanted to tell you political philosophy has to be taught like that. It has to be taught as a dynamic subject, uh, which changed its form, and it also helped in changing the form of society. The transition to feudalism in Europe, and from feudalism to capitalism, all that also has something to do with political philosophy or political thought, right? So these are the small details which we cannot avoid. It is not like, painting a house. You pick up the biggest possible brush, dip it in the paint box, and large strokes. And then probably a half a day, a room is painted. It isn't like that. This is more like a surgeon. Okay, a surgeon has to know the intricacies. If he's performing a surgery, he has to know what is where. He has to know if he cuts at one particular point, then that incision can lead to paralysis. Okay, so he has to know all these things. So it is like that. We have to know the intricate details and how social influences are to be found in philosophical, political, philosophical contexts, and how political, philosophical contexts are found to be transforming society. So this is what I wanted to tell you today. This is, I know I've taken a lot of time. I'm really sorry about that. But the thing is that unless and until you explore, every little nook and cranny, you're not going to get the correct meanings. In spite of examining every nook and cranny, you still might only get to, what do we say? You still only get to this part where now thing that looks right today but may not look right tomorrow. That is why you have this whole idea of deconstruction, reconstruction. All that is knowledge. Deconstruction of knowledge, reconstruction of knowledge, or if you're Martin Heidegger, so destroy, destruct. So what I'm trying to tell you is, now please tell me, where are your difficulties, and how do you think I can help you solve them? Really speak what is the difficulty you're facing with that course? Because Sri Lata tells me that you people are very worried about teach Western political thought too. Yes, I can. That is the arrangement that I came to with Sri Lata, not today, but I came to this arrangement a long time ago. And unfortunately, I am slowly becoming a wreck as far as my health is concerned. Uh, so the sheer lack of stamina stemming out of uh, doing any kind of work, mental, physical. So I was not, yeah, I know you don't have partner. I'm aware of that. So it's only because of that that these things got delayed. If you remember, I had started teaching you. I had started teaching you somewhere towards halfway through the third semester or what. I don't know. So gist, a gist is no, I want an honest answer, a very, very honest answer. I don't judge people. Are you looking at this from a purely examination point of view? Or are you also looking at it from the point of view of learning? See, actually, we put the cart for the horse. The system of examination came into being to judge how much you have learned. Okay, that's how it came. But what we are doing today is ignoring the idea. I'm not saying, Srija, that this is your idea of just exams. What I'm trying to tell you is we have to learn the subject. And if you learn the subject, if somebody kicks you out of bed in the middle of the night and asks you for answers from anything that you have studied and understood and therefore have become knowledgeable, you should be able to answer that. Okay, that's what I mean by education. We are not providing education in our university. I don't know. I don't want to comment about other universities. I don't think they are in this bad a shape. But the thing is that we are unfortunately concentrating only upon one thing. If you want to get into the details, I'll get into it. And I'll see that I don't get carried away. Today, I just wanted to demonstrate to you as to what or how. This is my storytelling, by the way. I didn't teach it like a class where I said Cicero said this, Seneca said this, Plato, Aristotle. No, I just gave you a general story of how the progression of the word politics happened from Greece straight to the proto-modern period, because Machiavelli is not a fully modern thinker. He's a proto-modern thinker. But if you look at Locke, he's a proper political economist. So that meaning is again very different. So you see, we can't, that's why I said, if you see anything which says state and government in ancient India, throw that book out. Just let me give you the reason in a minute. The reason is, if you are saying that there is a state in ancient India, then you're creating an anachronism. Okay? It's like saying that Roshni Yadav is now 85 years old and she's still attending these classes. That's anachronism. For the Greeks, chronos is the time principle. And if you follow the time principle, then it is called chronology. And if you don't follow the time principle, then there is a good chance that you create anachronisms. You'll say Gandhi and Plato didn't like each other. How is that even possible? Okay, which era was Plato and which era is Gandhi? So they can't possibly be enemies or friends or anything. So that's an anachronism. So one has to guard against this creation of anachronisms, because they are the ones that do maximum damage. And therefore, it's not just important to maintain a chronology, but you also have to, while you're maintaining the chronology, which is the time, you also have to make notations, not literally. You have to make notations about what happened in this time. Okay, everybody thinks Roman Empire was always an empire. It wasn't. Okay, the Roman Empire started off as a very primitive republic. It was ruled by a triumvirate, one who was a leader of the people and the army and all that. Then you have the other house, if you want to call it that. That is called the Senate. And the Senate basically comprised of people with wisdom, with an understanding of how society should develop. And then you had the magistrates. And the magistrates were not magistrates in the present sense of the term, where we mean, a magistrate is a judge. These people, magistrates, are not judging individual cases. It's not Keshavananda Bharati versus versus the state of Kerala. So it won't be like that. So you'll have to understand that there are different things that led to these different developments, and we need to understand at least the basic ones. Only when we understand the basic ones do we really get to understand a concept, civil society, rational people who had property. This is what you find in Locke. What you find in Rousseau is civil society is a result of the general will being implemented. And once the general will is implemented, there is complete democracy, total direct democracy. And unlike the other thinkers, Rousseau didn't favor nation states. He favored city states like Geneva. Actually, you should call them principalities. Doesn't matter. The real city states are Singapore, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and all these things. So anyway, so if you're looking at this, so there is a change in the meaning in Rousseau. Rousseau is calling civil society to be a result of democracy. So democracy becomes, for the first time, universal democracy, universal adult franchise becomes that for the first time only in Rousseau. Only in Rousseau. So what you see is that this definition of Rousseau's is negated by Hegel. Hegel basically saw corporation, written with a K. Corporate bodies were those which were, full of enlightened people. So those corporations, for him, the my just light on the power button. So the power button. This is so so what you do see there is a change within a generation. Somebody changes a meaning, and within another generation, between Rousseau and Hegel, you see civil society as a corporation, something that has intelligent people. And unfortunately, corporation in English went another way in terms of its translation from German. A corporation became something, it's a big corporates. What are big corporates? Big corporates are actually business houses, and you'll also say municipal corporation, which is again something that is tasked with specific functions. But Hegel doesn't see it only as these things. Hegel also sees this as what he calls civil society. So for him, civil society is corporation written with a K. Okay, so if you look at this, then what you actually find is that between Locke and Hegel, not a very lengthy period of history, so many different definitions came out for civil society. Similarly, for democracy, Rousseau wanted direct democracy. Hegel didn't want a direct democracy. Neither did Locke want a direct democracy or any democracy. They didn't want any of those things. So you see, what are the changes in society that drive these developments? That we need to do. And can somebody tell me where you are in the fourth semester? Which is the topic you're supposed to be doing now? Ladies, I don't have a copy of that syllabus. Otherwise, I would have checked it up myself. Anybody who has a copy? Right. If you don't have a copy today, please, somebody carry a copy tomorrow. Oh, Western political thought has not yet started, but they also didn't give you a copy of the syllabus. Okay. Anyway, I'll see if Srilata, it is there. Okay. If it is there, please bring it with you. And whatever my other problems, I will definitely teach this paper. Because like I said, this is the backbone of all political science. It's the backbone of all political science. Because I told you that corporation was translated in one particular way. The English translated that into bureaucracy. Civil society, according to Hegel, for them is bureaucracy. Now, I'll suggest many sources if you want. So, if you look at English, it translated that into bureaucracy. So bureaucracy for a pretty long time was seen as a very decent, meaningful way of understanding that institution until no, we'll have it, we'll have every day. We'll have every day unless in really bad shape. We'll have every day. And yeah, so like I was saying, we will, so when the changes do occur, they made it bureaucracy. And you say bureaucracy is an enlightened body. That's what you'll say when you read Hegel in English. And we know what kind of a body bureaucracy is. One of the most and horrible bodies that has red tape, work doesn't get done. What kind of enlightenment are you seeing there? That is a translation error. So that has to be understood. That was pointed out by Robert Merton. He said, don't compare this. Robert Merton is a public administration thinker. And he says, don't compare Hegel's idea of bureaucracy with what we have as bureaucracy today. That is what Martin says. He says the bureaucracy is extremely inefficient because it's only bothered about housekeeping functions, which means the bureaucrats are taking care of themselves and not serving the people. That's a critique that Robert Merton mounted, and a very valid one at that. So therefore, now if you have something to say, please say it. At least do you remember what was the thing that you last taught to you in semester 3, Western political philosophy? Nobody remembers. All right, so somebody bring me both the copies so that I don't sit and duplicate things as it is this VCR of ours is organizing all kinds of events and saying that this semester we don't have time. And how will we have time if we don't go to class? Anyway, so the basic thing is, please bring both the second, or is it third? Which semester? Fourth semester, right? Is it the fourth semester that we're studying Western political thought in? Or is it the second semester? Fourth semester. Okay. So please pass on. Just take a photograph and please send it to my WhatsApp, and I'll just have a look and work out according to which we can cover the ground that we need to cover. So, and ladies, you don't have to type. I can assure you, I'm a very sick man. I'm incapable of rape and those kind of things. Not only am I sick, I'm extremely old man, right? Your life is in front of you, mine is behind me. Just don't worry, just speak. I will not eat you. That's a promise. In fact, the strategy that we used to use when we were students, if the class got very boring, was start asking questions. Then the boredom would come a bit. So that is what I would like you to remember. You can ask questions and beat the boredom that otherwise comes with listening to me. Okay, so we'll get going with the classes from tomorrow. What time should we stick to? 5:30? Ladies? So it's agreeable to all, 5:30 to 6:30. Because slowly I'm going to activate my other online classes, which I need to do, which is research methodology. And your first years are also, I believe, in a state of great confusion. So maybe I'll have to do things with them as well. So let's see, tomorrow 5:30. And please do not hesitate to ask, to contradict. If you heard some other version of what I'm saying, just say, but this says that. This doesn't say this, but it does here. So you can feel free to contradict. Asking questions is a wonderful way of learning, because when you ask a question and you listen to that answer, you don't have to read it again. You really don't have to read it again. Okay, because that's already there. You heard it. So please remember, listening is very good, no doubt about it. But speaking is also equally good. So please ask questions, contradict what I'm saying, all that. That'll also keep the boredom away. All right. So thank you. Thank you very much. And tomorrow 6:30, no, 5:30. I hope to see you at 5:30. Okay, Prashni, thank you. So have a good night. Don't get tensed. And thank you. In Osmania, it is extremely difficult to fail. Okay, because it is the responsibility of the teachers to pass you. Yeah, Kirtina, thank you. So don't get too worried about it. Okay, you don't think of what will come in the exam. You don't know who's going to set the question paper. You don't know who's going to correct the question paper. So to sit and worry about the examination is worrying about the intangible. It's absolutely intangible. It's like worrying about some solar system that we've never seen, right? So it's like that. Relax. When you're relaxed, you study better. All right then. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow at 5:30. I'll be putting this link back in the socialsciences.in group. Okay? So that everybody can access it. Thank you.